CBS News national correspondent Chip Reid joins us now from the White House. So, Chip, Steve Bannon is facing growing backlash for his involvement in the book, including a cease and desist letter from the White House. What comes next for the president's former chief strategist, do you think?
Well, I tell you, and there's also a furious reaction from the president prior to the book. And even though he said, well, Steve Bannon's with me now, the word here is that the president is furious with him. And so are a lot of his supporters here in Washington and across the nation. Steve Bannon's plan is to basically have a revolution against the mainstream Republican Party. He's been going all across the country trying to recruit candidates. Roy Moore was not a very good choice, apparently. But he's trying to recruit others across the country to get rid of all those mainstream Republicans, but he cannot succeed in his mission without the support of the Trump voters. And let me give you an example of the kind of thing that is in this book on page 308, right near the end.
Hot copy there.
Yeah, hot copy. Michael Wolff quotes Steve Bannon as telling people he thought there was a 33% chance that the Mueller investigation would lead to the impeachment of the president and a 33% chance that Trump would resign. He's not going to make it, Bannon reportedly said. He's lost his stuff. I mean, the Trump supporters are not going to like this. And if they turn on Steve Bannon, it's going to be very hard for him to be out there having this revolution against the mainstream Republican Party. In fact, there are already lots of reports he's having a very difficult time even hiring people. I was going to say he may have shot himself in the foot. It's possible he shot himself in both feet.
Well, Chip, let's talk about Michael Wolff, the author here. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders claims that Mr. Wolff was denied access to the White House more than 30 times. Let's play a little bit of what she had to say this morning. Let's play that.
Absolutely spoke to the president. Whether he realized it was an interview or not, I don't know, but it certainly was not off the record.
And you spoke to him at the White House after he was sworn in?
I spoke to him after the inauguration, yes. And I had spoken to, I've spent about 3 hours with the president over the course of the campaign in the White House. So my window into Donald Trump is pretty significant.
All right, Chip, so there's Michael Wolff on the Today Show this morning, essentially refuting what Sarah Sanders said. But I have two questions for you. One, as a White House correspondent, how often did you and the rest of the White House press corps see Michael Wolff and wonder, why is he there? How many times did you see him? And what can you tell us about Mr. Wolff's credibility, his past? Is he a journalist in the sense that you and I and Anne-Marie are journalists, or is he something else?
Well, let me address that first. He is something else in some ways. He does have a bit of a reputation for being a little bit loosey-goosey with facts. There was a critique written about one of his books years ago that said that he just makes stuff up. But Michael Wolff, in that interview that you just played later on, said that he has written millions of words over the years in numerous books, and he said he has never issued a correction, never been forced to issue a correction. And in the book, for example, there are some examples where what he has said in the book was confirmed. For example, there was a dinner in New York with Roger Ailes, who is no longer with us, but of course was the head of Fox News, and Steve Bannon and some other people. And a lot of people said, well, geez, how are we going to confirm this? Roger Ailes isn't around. Nobody's really believing Steve Bannon. But Janice Min, one of the top people at The Hollywood Reporter, was in the room at that dinner. She says he got it precisely right. And there have been other things in the book where people have said, I was there, Michael Wolff got it exactly right. So he may have really made an effort here. And don't forget, he says he has dozens of hours of tape recordings. So if people question specific things, he may be able to come back and say, gotcha.
So one of the portions of the book that it's been reported really angered the president was what Bannon had to say about that 2016 Trump Tower meeting with his son and his son-in-law. And now we're learning, now that the book has been released, we're learning that the letter that was crafted, the crafted response to that meeting is something that upset at least one person who worked for the president so much that that person quit. They were concerned that this may be a situation where there's obstruction of justice, where somebody may be breaking the law. So my question to you is, do you think Special Counsel Robert Mueller will be putting an investigator on this book? Do you think they'll be picking up this book and reading it, and could it factor in the investigation?
You know, I'm sure they'll read it, but there is such phenomenal investigative firepower on Robert Mueller's team that it's hard for me to believe that anything that Michael Wolff got by hanging out at the White House and talking to a lot of people there would make a big difference in their investigation. I mean, they have subpoena power and they have grand jury power. They have so much more than he had. So I'm sure they'll read it and, you know, perhaps consider some things. Maybe they'll get a lead here and there or a person to talk to. But my guess is that they are miles ahead of him in investigating all of this.
Chip Reid, I know it is something like -2 or colder out there in front of the White House. And you don't have a scarf or a hat on,
Yes.
Chip, so please.
Do you have gloves?
Do you have gloves at least?
Well, they're not on, but I have them.
Gosh,
At least you're not like Tony DeCopo locking them in his car.
I had to page through the book. I couldn't wear gloves, right?
All right.
That's
Chip
our way of
Reid.
saying we're going to let you go.
We're going to let you go, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you so
very
much, Chip. Have a nice weekend.
And you too.